morning, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
And I'm Pauline Verzosa.
The big stories tonight. The government announces help for the transport sector more than a month into the oil crisis. That's as the Gulf War, while on a 2-week pause, remains fragile and could still pick up where it left off.
There is promise of relief at the pump next week. Oil prices are expected to go down, but not by double digits or as much as they rose over the last 5 consecutive weeks.
And first on One News, the DILG says fugitive businessman Atong Ang was almost arrested today, while lawyer Harry Roque is also nearing apprehension.
Ipapatupad ang service contracting. Babayaran namin ang ating mga operator at driver ng mula 40 pesos hanggang 100 piso kada kilometro. 10 piso kada litro na bawas para sa public utility vehicle na may maximum na 150 liters kada linggo sa loob ng 3 buwan. Sisimulan muna natin ito sa NCR sa susunod na linggo.
The government has rolled out latest packages to help the transport sector cope with high fuel prices. President Bongbong Marcos announced 2 relief strategies hatched up or discussed in his meetings with the Uplift team. Uplift is the government's unified package for livelihood, industry, food, and transport, a group formed to address the ongoing fuel crisis. First, there's service contracting, which will be implemented starting April 15. Under the program to be led by the Transportation Department, drivers and operators will be paid for trips before rush hours. All participants will have GPS monitoring to ensure they are actually plying their routes. Commuters will also be given discounts.
Simula April 15, ipapatupad ng DOTR ang service contracting program. Babayaran namin ang ating mga operator at driver ng mula 40 pesos hanggang 100 piso kada kilometro. Dagdag ito sa kanilang kita mula sa pamasahe. Ipapatupad ito sa buong bansa. Sasaklaw sa humigit kumulang 50,000 na PUV, 1,000 operator at aabot sa 15 milyong pasahero. Ang service contracting program ay ipapatupad sa off-peak hours upang masigurong may masasakyan pa rin ang ating mga kababayan kahit hindi sa rush hour. Lahat ng sasali ay may GPS monitoring para naman matiyak na aktwal ang biyahe at maayos ang serbisyo. Para naman sa mga commuter, may kasamang hindi bababa sa 20% na diskwento sa pamasahe. Ang mga ruta ay nakatuon sa mga lugar na may koneksyon sa tren at pangunahing mga bus route.
President Marcos has likewise announced a 10 peso per liter fuel discount for public utility vehicles. However, the discount is only good for a maximum of 150 liters per week and can only be availed from fuel stations accredited by the Department of Energy. And the program will run for 3 months.
Magpapatupad tayo ng 10 piso kada litro na bawas para sa public utility vehicle na may maximum na 150 liters kada linggo sa loob ng 3 buwan. Sisimulan muna natin ito sa NCR sa susunod na linggo. Una sa Commonwealth, palalawakin natin ito sa mga susunod na araw sa Quezon Avenue, Espanya, Zapote, A. Bonifacio, Rizal at Marcos Highway hanggang mapalawak natin ito sa buong bansa. Mahalaga ito dahil hindi lang transport cost ang tinutugunan natin. Pinipigilan din natin ang pagtaas ng presyo ng pagkain at iba pang pangunahing bilihin. Ang fuel subsidy ay ipapatupad lamang sa mga lehitimong gasoline station na aprobado at minomonitor ng Department of Energy upang masigurong mapupunta ito sa tama at hindi ito maabuso.
In the Middle East, fighting continues despite a 2-week ceasefire declared by Iran and the United States. Despite this,
oil industry sources are seeing a drop in Philippine pump prices next week.
but the rollback will be barely felt, as Mobile Journal Arles de los Santos tells us in this report.
All vessels in Persian Gulf at occupancy. This is Iranian Sepa Navy Station. Transiting in a state of Hormuz is closed yet, and you need to receive permission from Iranian Sepa Navy for passing through the strait. Any vessel trying to transit in through the strait without our permission will be targeted and destroyed.
Ships receive this radio message every time they pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Any vessel that refuses to yield will be targeted by the Iranian Navy. Recent photos from Filipino seafarers in the area show missiles flying all over the Gulf. That's amid an announcement of a ceasefire to pave the way for negotiations.
Medyo nakakatakot kasi kahapon meron ng pronouncement, yesterday may pronouncement na about ceasefire. Pero in reality, on the ground, iba yung nangyayari doon. Meron pa ring mga missiles, especially sa Lebanon, sa Kuwait, sa UAE, na naglalabasan pa rin at nagliliparan, which is right now, it's a risk really for seafarers.
And then there's the sustained attacks of Israel on Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists Hezbollah is not covered by the truce with Tehran. The United States agrees.
I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise. We never indicated that was going to be the case.
What looks like a faltering ceasefire causes spikes in crude prices at the world market. Nevertheless, the few days before that saw tempering, which could actually trigger a rollback at the Philippine pump. Projections point to next week's diesel prices going down by between 2 pesos and 50 centavos and 3 pesos and 50 centavos per liter, while gasoline could be a peso cheaper. But for transport groups, this is just a drop in the bucket, considering the punishing oil price hikes over the last 5 weeks. But they will still take whatever reprieve comes at this point.
Pangloloko na naman ito sa mga tsuper, sa taong bayan, na ang laki nung ibinaba sa world market. Nagbaba na sir So dapat, dati kapag ka may forecast na may gulo, yung pangalawang araw pa lang nagtataas na sila ng presyo. Pero ngayon nagsabi na bumaba, ayaw naman nilang magbaba. Yung pagbaba na yan sir, parang parang masama pa yung loob ng mga oil companies.
Well, yung magiging rollback sa isang linggo ay malaking bagay na yan, 3 pesos and 50 centavos. So, bali, ang itinatanong ko lang sa DOE, bakit pagkapataas, mabilis silang magtaas sa may mga buffer stock pang dapat pumusin na good for 2 months? Ito ngayon, bumaba na sa world market, $103 per barrel. Kaya na, sasabihin nila, binili nung mataas ang crudo, kanya mataas pa rin ang kanilang pagbebenta. Kanya manipis ang rollback.
Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
Now let's continue to talk about the government's response to the ongoing oil crisis. And joining us tonight is Ibon Foundation Executive Director Sunny Africa. Welcome back to the big story, Sunny.
Hi, good evening, Ces. Pauline, how are you doing?
All right, so the government announced this service contracting scheme today, which will be effective on April 15. However, no announcement for the agriculture sector, which we understand is in dire need of help as well. What's your assessment so far?
Well, first of all, I think we have to take everything that the government announces with a grain of salt. There are no measures to increase the interventions of the government beyond what was already in the 2025 budget. Whatever numbers they roll out, like they announced 230 billion supposedly in assistance, that was pre-programmed, that would have been spent even without the crisis. That's existing support for whatever purposes, such as being rebranded. And I think it's important to start from that, because if the government is taking the crisis seriously, they would mobilize additional revenue measures for the additional interventions needed. Otherwise, we'll just be running around in circles. So that's a quick comment on everything that will be announced. That's also why I think that the service contracting and any of the other subsidy support already given, they will definitely be too small, too little, reach too few, and be for too short a time. Of course, that feeds into the looming food crisis we're having. I think we will have a serious food insecurity problem right now, not just from the production side, where we'll be seeing persistent food inflation, but also from the purchasing side, where families will who are already seeing huge collapses in their purchasing power. And I think, unfortunately, with so many Filipino families spending most of their budget on food, any price shocks will automatically translate into less food, worse welfare, worse malnutrition. On the other hand, on the rural side, we'll probably be seeing lower farm gate prices, higher poverty, and I think, unfortunately, perhaps supply shocks in the months to come. These can be avoided, but the government has to spend, and they have to spend more than they already budgeted in the 2026 budget.
Well, Sunny, aside from the service contracting program announced by the government, they're also planning to roll out a 10 peso per liter fuel subsidy. How sound is that intervention, especially since it will be targeted? And the government didn't mention anything about suspending the excise taxes, which a lot of people are also anticipating.
Again, the question of a fuel subsidy, that's absolutely essential. I think one of the most important supply side interventions to keep sustaining transport services and to avert transport sector poverty, they do absolutely need direct fuel subsidies. But whatever the government's announcing right now, again, like I mentioned earlier, if they're not giving additional budget on top of what is already there, that's going to be too little for too few people. Having said that, of course, I think the question of taking away the excise tax on oil, but also I think we should start considering taking away the VAT tax on oil as well. We're basically dealing with a global shock here. Whatever taxes amplify that global shock. And the thing is, unless the government completely accepts that oil isn't a simple commodity, it's a system-wide input, whatever price increase that is passed through by the oil firms is just made worse by taxes being put on top of that. So unfortunately, I think right now, it's so alarming for us that amidst all the problem that we don't have resources for the full support needed, I don't think anyone's really asked how much is the windfall the government has, how much windfall do the oil firms have? I mean, they've been using replacement cost pricing, their initial computations, just because of that replacement cost pricing. If they were selling inventory bought cheap a month ago, they actually got a windfall of about 47 billion pesos just in March. That's 1.5 billion pesos a day. On the other hand, the government gets a windfall as well. They probably earned about 5 to 6 billion pesos more because of the maintenance of the VAT. So I think, again, the government has to take the problem seriously. Number one problem right now is oil price management. If the government doesn't take it seriously to interrupt the price transmission from abroad, if it makes it worse by adding taxes, I think that's not actually that's actually amplifying the original sin from the get-go. And not to speak of the other interventions needed from the supply side to protect households and actually also for the long-term structural transformations we need.
Sunny, can the government on its own, or does it have to ask Congress to, work with the funds that it has and transfer where some are needed, for instance, the agriculture sector? Can it do it? Can the DBM do it on its own?
It can't do the realignment of funds on its own at the scale needed.
Okay.
I think whatever intervention we need right now, again, if we're going to be really cheap about it, if we're going to be working within the existing 2026 budget, even the scale of realignment, for instance, from pork barrel-ridden road infrastructure projects, that can't be done by mere executive decision. That has to go through Congress. And that's why I think it's so weird that when we had the declaration of a national energy emergency, that actually sent a bad signal. That means the government is not taking the emergency seriously. They have to insert that weird energy term that detoothed all laws that have national emergency on them, including all the regulation law. And then when it had a little provision at the end saying, this shall be implemented within existing appropriations, I think on those two counts, we saw the government really is not taking the problem seriously.
Also, no announcement on what you said was a looming food crisis, no announcement to address this. And we do understand that there are no funds yet being given to fisherfolk and farmers because they will be coming from the President's Contingency Fund, which has not yet been released.
Yeah, the tiny 10 billion peso presidential assistance to farmers and fisherfolk. Again, that's the problem. We will be seeing press releases completely out of context. anyone who reads a press release with so many billion pesos spent on so many thousands farmers, given so many thousands in subsidies, that actually isn't the whole story. The whole story is we right now have about 10 to 11 million farmers and fisherfolk who need support because their cost of transport of their produce has increased. Fisherfolk have stopped fishing. A lot of farmers have already stopped farming because it's too expensive. They're not going to, they can harvest something, but they can't bring it to market. I think right now we're already seeing the localized supply gaps in vegetables and fish. The problem is in 2 to 3 months, if the government doesn't intervene, not just on the oil price control front, if it doesn't directly intervene to make things cheaper for farmers to produce, cheaper working capital, their own fuel subsidies, hopefully some kind of public logistics systems, the localized supply gaps are going to translate into national supply gaps. So it's bad enough that we're seeing a pass-through of cost push inflation right now, but a supply gap at the national level will mean persistent food inflation. And I think it's so underappreciated. The worst people hit by food inflation are the majority of Filipinos. I think any government response has to realize half of Filipinos have declared themselves poor even before the crisis. These are Filipinos earning maybe about 22,000 pesos or 10,000 pesos or 5,000 pesos a month. After that, lower middle class earning at most 36,000. It's crazy. We're talking about 20 to 21 million Filipino families, poor or vulnerable. They're the ones who have no deep pockets to draw from when food increases. When food prices increase, they can only do two things. They'll buy less food or buy poor quality food. And that increases the risk of malnutrition. Again, underestimated. The Philippines has the second worst food scarcity in Asia. I mean, we're next in Southeast Asia. We're next to Cambodia in that sense. I mean, the FAO said half of Filipinos are moderately or severely food insecure. So things are really bad even before the oil price shock. Things are going to get really bad when the oil price shock works its way through the food and agriculture system. But here's the government saying, no, everything's manageable, chill. We're doing everything we can. Look at our press releases. That is not completely unacceptable.
Well, Sonny, I also wanted to go back to something you touched on earlier, which is that fuel companies got a windfall of about 47 billion pesos due to higher prices. Walk us through where you got your findings and what could be done there, because doesn't that already fall under profiteering?
It's perfectly legal, unfortunately. If we look at the premises of the oil deregulation law and the Senate hearings we attended, where the DOE said that we can't do anything, that's a system. We're working under a fully deregulated oil industry. There are only 2 countries in Southeast Asia that have a fully deregulated industry, it's only the Philippines and Singapore. 9 out of 11 ASEAN countries have some kind of government intervention in pricing, apart from other interventions. How we computed that was quite straightforward. The oil companies, again, they don't really disclose their inventory, but we assume they're following the law, 15 to 30 days inventory. They were selling their diesel and gasoline at about 58, 59 pesos at the end of February. By the end of March, they were selling at 122 pesos per diesel. Simple computation, if it's replacement cost pricing and they're not pricing based on what they purchased, they are pricing based on how to replace the inventories.
Yes.
Basically, they were selling dear from buying cheap.
That's their explanation, because they need the funds to buy more expensive oil.
Yeah, but the thing is, if they wanted to go into the oil business, it's a bit unfair for such a critical commodity like oil, which is a system-wide input. It's a bit unfair for them to completely pass on cost volatility to the consumer. That's the only meaning of replacement cost pricing. It's not a neutral accounting choice. That is a choice with government complicity saying any volatility of a business will be passed. Any cost volatility of the business will be completely passed on to the consumer, and that is so absurd. That is so crazy.
So the suggestion is for Congress to perhaps pass a law that would tax the windfall profits of the oil companies. That's
at the very least
option.
They should do that. At the very least, they should do that to increase their revenues for all the support needed. But we argue, give us some transparency. And it's so absurd for the DOE in a Senate hearing to say, yes, we've monitored the oil companies, how they price their inventory, their freight, logistics, insurance, but we can't say anything about it.
Or
I mean,
there was even a suggestion of the Maharlika Fund to buy Petron.
Well, in principle, that would make sense. I mean, Petron, market capitalization is about 30 billion pesos. I mean, enterprise value might be about 230 billion. The government doesn't need to buy everything. It just needs to get a controlling
Majority stake.
But the thing is, the Maharlika Fund's governance problems haven't really been resolved, have they? So I think that's like from the frying pan into the fire. We do need much more accountability, much more better governance in the Maharlika structure for that to actually make sense.
You know, the transport sector, even belatedly, is getting all the attention. Is it because they're noisy? Should the fisher folk and farmers, go to the streets to protest?
Mahal ang pamasahe for them to go to the streets where they are in the farms and in the coastal regions. But I think the recent transport workers are understandably the first to go out on the streets. They're the most hit. They're the most fuel sensitive among all the sectors in the country. So the first wave really hit the transport workers first. It didn't actually hit households much because the poorest households aren't very big direct consumers of either gasoline or diesel. But if the first wave of impacts on transport workers, the second wave will be on fisherfolk and farmers.
Right, second
fisherfolk when they go fisherfolk, irrigation, their pump boats, all of that.
Correct, but if we don't act fast enough, wala na silang,
exactly.
Kasi malapit na ang taniman, di ba?
No, exactly. I think, and there are the anecdotal reports of fish farmers who've stopped farming, haven't harvested, let their crops to die. We've had farmers who just didn't sort of left their crops at the field in their storage because they can't afford to bring it to market. And fisherfolk have stopped fishing as well. I think localized supply gaps have already been seen. And the worry is, if we're only going to be seeing performative measures, if the only subsidy the government will give will come from the 10 billion presidential assistance for farmers and fisherfolk, that's going to be nothing. That's going to be probably spent in a couple of weeks. It's good. It's a good press release. It's a good indication of sort of signal of support supposedly, but it's ultimately hollow.
Actually, parang yung mga billion na yan, parang barya when it's compared to the numbers of the flood control scandal na almost 1 trillion. Diba? Parang barya
exactly. And I think, and even right now, when we're talking about pork barrel, the only pork barrel that was taken away was the flood control projects. They haven't taken away pork barrel in road projects, bridge projects, building projects. So I think, if politicians are afraid to say we're cutting pork barrel, they can hide it. We're going to cut non-essential infrastructure. I mean, the government can have more funds, but again, like I said earlier, Ms. Cess, they can't do that on their own account. They do need to go through Congress. I think the most important thing right now, that's why proper legislation is so important. You have to formally recognize the state of national emergency to actually send a signal that all existing laws that have national emergency provisions will be used, including all the regulation law, including the Price Act. But also, it sends a signal to Congress, we need to find the resources, like we did in Bayanihan 1, Bayanihan 2, to mobilize for, it's so weird. It's not a price spike. We're seeing a systemic cost shock. Even if the ceasefire holds, even if a 10-point peace deal as Iran heavy gets sealed within 2 weeks, we're seeing at least until the end of the year high oil prices. No one's going to believe that oil prices will stabilize, that there's no geopolitical risk. It's going to disappear, evaporate overnight. That's not even counting the second-order effects of global disruptions in not just in fuel, but in fertilizer and whatever other geopolitical risks we're actually seeing right now.
And so, Sunny, from a macro perspective, what is your outlook for the Philippine economy? Because the other day, the BSP already announced that inflation has now risen to 4.1%. It's the highest in almost 2 years. Purchasing power of the peso is now down to 750 pesos from 1,000 in 2018. But are our current policies enough to protect Filipinos?
Definitely not. It's not going to protect Filipinos. It's not going to protect the economy. Right now, the biggest growth dampener, the tool that the economy is facing, is household consumption. Household consumption spending takes up 73% of the economy. If you have 4.1% inflation now, we expect 5 or 6% in the next couple of months, maybe hitting 7, 8, 9% by the end of the year. If that happens, household consumption will be cramped, will be squeezed, and economic growth will be squeezed with all the follow-through effects in terms of lower investment, lower job generation, lower incomes, in a sort of vicious spiral going down. But the thing is, right now, we don't even have to talk about the macro impact. We're seeing already a huge welfare impact, even among just the transport sector. And it doesn't make sense for the government to think that to dismiss the travails of over 2 million transport workers right now. We've seen their incomes fall by 80% to, well, over 100%, and they've stopped hindi na mamasada. It doesn't make sense that welfare impact is sort of normalized by saying, well, we can't do anything about it. It's a global issue, and we're doing everything we can. We completely disagree. The government is not doing everything it can. If anything, it's sort of burying its hand in the sand and allowing the burden of adjusting to the huge oil price and supply shock to be borne by those most unable to bear it, while protecting the oil first, while protecting billionaires, while protecting high-income families. That is so unfair, that is so regressive, that is super bad governance for us.
We thank you once again for your insights. Ibon Foundation Executive Director, Sunny Africa.
Meantime, farmers in Central Luzon are switching to solar-powered irrigation amid soaring diesel prices. Mobile journalist Jazz Paredes has that story.
Amid rising fuel costs, farmers in Central Luzon have switched to solar-powered irrigation through the Community Empowerment through Science and Technology or CEST program of DOST Central Luzon. The goal of the solar trailer irrigation unit is to help farmers stray away from dependence on diesel and alleviate costs. Most especially now that diesel prices have skyrocketed across the country.
Ang objective po talaga ng project is to alleviate the farm inputs po, no? Specifically yung gastos po talaga doon sa pag-irrigate either rice, high-value crops, and other commodities po natin. Yung mga traditional po kasi na irrigation natin is typically costing around 1.2 million and 2 to 3 years po bago mag-operationalize. Whereas ito pong project natin is around 190,000, 165,000 na deploy. And instant po na mapapakinabangan ng mga farmers po natin.
The mobile solar-powered unit is designed to provide a sustainable and cost-effective water solution for agricultural operations, reducing farmers' reliance on traditional fuel-based pumps and their associated costs. Each unit can operate for up to 8 hours under sufficient sunlight and has a maximum discharge capacity of 50 cubic meters per hour, enough to irrigate about half a hectare every hour. Starting in 2025, 14 units have been deployed to 14 farmer associations across Central Luzon as its chosen beneficiaries. 4 in Bulacan, 5 in Aurora, 2 in Nueva Ecija, 1 in Pampanga, and 2 in Tarlac. With this, farmers are able to save up to 192 liters of diesel or approximately 12,480 pesos per cycle.
Actually, as of current monitoring po namin, hindi pa po namin siya ma-equate into actual data na stable po yung prices. Kasi kapag po ganon, kailangan din po namin i-consider yung iba pong farm inputs sa fertilizer, seedlings, or yung labor cost na kailangan pa po i-consider into costing ng products. Pero I think I can say po na at the farm gate prices po, syempre, wala na pong malaking cost.
Different from traditional fuel-based pumps, the solar trailer units are mobile, meaning they can be shared or moved to locations of other members who require them. With no diesel use, the units are also eco-friendly with zero emission.
Mainly, this is an electric water pump that is being fed by electric power coming from the solar panels. Then the pump motor, once naman siya, pagka na-energize na siya, it will pump out water para dun sa mga irrigation natin. Specifically, yung design ng ating pump na to is for a surface type or sa mga open water sources or sa mga mabababaw na shallow tube well.
One of its beneficiaries also shared the first-hand experience of farmers in San Ildefonso, Bulacan.
Sobrang laking tulong po para po sa mga farmers kasi alam na sa farming po, ang gastos po sa irrigation is nasa 10 to 30% po ng total cost of farm cost. Ngayon po, lalo pa ngayon, sabi ko nga po 30%, baka mas tumaas pa po dahil sa prices po ng diesel.
Kapatid Jas Paredes, we are One News.
This is a big story on One News, and coming up, Vice President Sara Duterte takes another swipe at the government she is still part of. She's questioning the energy emergency response. We have details when we return. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying with us here in the big story. Vice President Sara Duterte is at it again, slamming the administration of her former running mate, President Bongbong Marcos. On the sidelines of an event in Davao City for today's Araw ng Kagitingan, the VP was asked on what she thinks about the government's response to the fuel crisis.
Dapat tanungin natin ang ating Pangulo, no? Ano bang ginagawa niya para tulungan ang mga kababayan natin na tinatamaan o nahihirapan dahil dito sa epekto ng krisis sa Middle East.
Palace Press Officer Claire Castro was quick to parry Duterte's tirade. In a statement, Castro said the problem with the VP is she's not aware of what the administration is doing. And while she is a part of government, Duterte is not providing solutions, only criticism. Meantime, the vice president was also asked for comment on the president's health. She only had this to say.
Good luck sa kanya.
Earlier, Mr. Marcos addressed rumors his health is failing. The chief executive assures there is nothing to worry about.
Huwag niyo pong masyadong siniseryoso. Alam mo naman ang social media, palabiro yan eh. I'm struggling kasi ayoko tumaba ulit. That's what I'm taking care of. But I want to magpapasalamat naman ako sa mga nag-aalala sa akin.
Marcos was previously diagnosed with diverticulitis or an inflammation of one part of the intestine. It is not life-threatening, and the president said he has already recovered from it. Now let's check on other headlines this Thursday, starting with the Presidential Communication Office saying disinformation on the president's health is an effort to destabilize the government.
PCO Secretary Dave Gomez said they are tracking and documenting every post, comment, and false claim. Complaints will be filed as early as next week. Gomez added even some mainstream platforms were found spreading fake news. The president's spokesman reiterated the administration remains focused on addressing the country's energy crisis and urged the public not to believe everything on social media. And in other news, Baguio City has been placed under a state of calamity as rising fuel prices and supply disruptions continue to impact its transport, tourism, and daily life. The City Council unanimously approved Resolution Number 257 in line with the national energy emergency declared by the president. The measure, backed by Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong, will allow the city to access its Quick Response Fund, including an emergency transport support program. The local government is also preparing an economic continuity plan to support recovery should peace talks in the Middle East continue.
Meantime, private schools may adjust class delivery amid rising electricity costs during the national energy emergency. The Education Department says schools can either keep full in-person classes or shift to blended learning to manage expenses. Under the policy, remote learning is limited to 1 day a week for kindergarten, to grade 6, up to 2 days for grades 7 to 10, and up to 3 days for senior high. It will stay in effect throughout the energy emergency, with regional offices monitoring compliance.
And meantime, the nation marks the 84th day of Valor today. The president led the commemoration ceremony at Mount Samat in Bataan this morning, where he noted that modern challenges, including the impact of the Middle East crisis, continue to affect the country. But Mr. Marcos stressed that true national strength lies in unity. In Davao City, Vice President Sara Duterte led a separate observance.
And overseas, Pope Leo XIV has appointed Luis Antonio Cardinal Tagle and San Pablo Bishop Marcelino Antonio Maralit as members of the Vatican's Dicastery for Communications. This means they will be part of overseeing the Holy See's media, press relations, and digital communications operations.
And in other news, Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla revealed that fugitive gambling tycoon Atong Ang was almost arrested today. Remulla told our sister program Storycon that law enforcers acted on actual sightings of Ang and kicked off operations as early as 5 this morning. Remulla declined to disclose Ang's exact location but confirmed that the businessman is still in the Philippines. Ang is facing kidnapping with homicide and serious illegal detention charges over the missing Sabongeros case. And he has been evading arrest since January 13 of this year.
Muntik na namin mga corner. Nag-operations kami kanina kasi may eyeball sighting sa kanya. Pero we were a day too late. Hindi namin na abutan. But meron kami actual eyeball report na nakita siya rito. Bigay in the country.
Meantime, Remulla also confirmed speaking recently to lawyer Harry Roque. The DILG chief said Roque will be arrested as soon as the Interpol releases a red notice against him. Remulla insisted that Roque's passport has already been canceled, contrary to the former presidential spokesperson's pronouncements. Roque has a non-bailable arrest warrant for qualified human trafficking, having been tagged in offshore gaming operations in Pampanga.
To be candid, I did get in touch with him and I did tell him the conditions, and he said that he is filing for asylum, but I think pretty soon pupunta ko na siya sa Vienna. Kung may red notice siya, paparesto ko na siya. Well, sabi niya, hindi, may petition for review pa ako, marami. Hindi ko maintindihan, basta dami niya sinasabi. Alam mga abogado ko magpaliwanag, ang haba eh.
Now, as for former Congressman Zaldico, Remulla is also promising an Interpol red notice out for the fugitive soon. Remulla believes Co is still in Portugal and is holding a Portuguese passport. Recall that Co's Philippine passport was canceled after he was charged before the Sandigan Bayan. He is being accused of involvement in an anomalous flood control project in Oriental Mindoro.
He's still in Portugal. Ang advantage kasi ng red notice, even his Portuguese passport will be flagged. And he gained it 10 years ago. So, criminal talaga mag-isip eh.
Now on to another story. The Bangsamoro Ministry of Social Services and Development is expanding programs to ensure equal access to social services, education, and livelihood opportunities. That's as the region marks 7 years of autonomy. The story from mobile journalist Merimon Reyes.
A Filipino in Luzon should be equal to a Filipino in Visayas and equal to a Filipino in Mindanao and equal to a Filipino in Bangsamoro. All rights, privileges, access to peace and development projects, budget, accorded to them equally if we want to remain a citizen and an equal citizen of this sovereign nation.
Alongside the foundation of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao, now on its 7th year, is the Ministry of Social Services and Development, or the MSSD, acting as its regional executive department, the BARMM's primary agency for social service delivery. It goes hand in hand with the transition and normalization period of the region, to which several programs are being implemented, including mental health, psychosocial support, assistance to trafficking survivors recovery, emergency and disaster relief assistance, provision of safe shelters for women and children in crisis, cash for work assistance, access to education and livelihood opportunities, and child youth welfare programs such as its Kupko program for the orphan, free birth registration, and feeding programs. In a forum, the MSSD shared that one thing everyone should know about the region is that it is no longer about violence, as they have seen a decrease in internal conflicts. Rather, it is now a conquest of reaching each and every Moro to extend the means and opportunities of living a peaceful and stable life. This, especially the youth who may have experienced forced labor, trauma, or sense of being lost.
meron po kami pinapatayong bahay pag-asa. Sa local level, nalakasan natin yung responsibilidad ng mga kasama natin sa gobyerno. So binubuo natin yung mga interagency, multidisciplinary team para pagsisigurado na kung merong bata na napunta sa ganung landas, maibalik natin at mabigyan natin ng kaukulang serbisyo. Tuloy ang ating family development sessions. Para pagsisigurado na ang bawat pamilya, ang bawat magulang ay makita ang responsibilidad sa mga anak.
Throughout day one of the MSSD's Tanglao Forum and connecting with members of national and regional media, it was seen that communication is crucial to striking the stigma surrounding the region on its historical journey towards autonomy to its much-awaited parliamentary elections. On talks of sovereignty, according to the minister of the MSSD, while the region is holding on to its agreement with the national government for autonomy and keeping strong its share of protecting the country and its coastal areas, they are still watching out for future hurdles.
I think if we are able to show that this autonomy works, then maybe that is the end of that struggle. Sa ngayon po, I would have to say that some parts of the agreement did not find their way into the law. Like, yung kinanta ko po, yung shared power sana sa public order, it's not there in the DOL. Yung power over Sharia, it's still under the Supreme Court. So, meron pa rin pong mga ganyan na kailangan pang bunuin. So, challenge pa rin sa Bangsamoro Transition Authority and the regular governments how they make use of the powers that are and the resources provided to them.
Therefore, Philippines needs the Bangsamoro people, and the Bangsamoro people need our Filipino brothers and sisters to understand that our destiny is intertwined with yours. And perhaps when the time comes that you can count the number of skyscrapers here, the same as in Makati or BGC, then that is progress in terms of equity.
Kapatid mobile journalist Mary Mon Reyes, we are One News.
Now we're just going to take a quick break, but when we return, in this economy, can you still run an eco-friendly business? Well, one momtrepreneur says yes. In fact, she is helping other mothers earn too. Sustainability is next. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back to the big story. In the Philippines, an estimated 3 million disposable diapers are thrown away every day. That's about 1.1 billion disposable diapers a year, according to the Climate Change Commission. This adds up to over 200,000 tons of diaper waste annually, prompting some parents to turn to reusable alternatives. What began as a mother's search for a better option for her child has now grown into a business. Amid this venture, now supports families and creates livelihood for other mothers. BARMM Cloth Diapers was founded by Lani Geronimo, who turned her personal journey into an advocacy for more conscious parenting. Her products are designed to be gentle on baby's skin, offering reusable options that help reduce everyday waste. It's now time to put the spotlight on initiatives that help communities move forward. Welcome to Sustainability. Ayan, and joining us this evening is Lani Geronimo, founder of BARMM Cloth Diapers. Good evening, Lani. Welcome to Sustainability.
Good evening po.
And congratulations.
Yes, congratulations for being named.
Discarding
Eco-friendly business po.
Oo, sa mompreneur, pang gawad tanglaw, gawad, ano na nga?
Gawad madiskarte.
Gawad madiskarte.
Iba pala yun, ibang mothers yun, gawad tanglaw. And you won 100,000 pesos.
Yes po.
Pero more than the cash, it's the honor no na mapili.
Yes po.
How did you first come about with this idea? Hawakan mo si baby para ipakita mo kung paanong... Did you know pala, it takes 50 years, or is it 500 years?
500
500
years to fully
years.
decompose one disposable diaper.
500
yes,
years.
500 years.
Kasi yung mga diaper natin nung
Yeah.
baby tayo.
Buhay pa siya hanggang ngayon.
Pwedeng deads ka na yung diaper na ginamit mo.
Nakailang
buhay pa.
generation ka na.
Imagine,
It's really sad.
500 years.
Yes po.
Okay, so show us how easy it is. Ang cute, oh. Ayan, Pawi,
Oo.
Mag-isip-isip ka na.
It's a sign.
It's a sign.
Ayan po.
Oo.
Ang cloth diapers po namin ay kasya from newborn hanggang toddler. Ang hanggang 20 kilograms or 4 years old.
Wow.
Kasya po siya.
Kasi ang daming butones.
Yes po, isang diaper lang po yung gagamitin nyo. Kasi po, yung mga buttons na yan, siya po yung nagsisilbi na sizing niya. For example, sa disposable, may newborn size tayo. Dito, i-snaps lang natin siya. I-adjust lang natin sa snaps based on size ni baby. Magiging newborn siya. So, hindi natin kailangan...
Liliit siya.
Yes
Oo.
po.
So, from newborn, from like
Yes po,
6
newborn.
pounds, pwede?
Yes
lang?
po. Newborn to toddler
Tapos,
po siya.
Lani, ano ba yung linalaban dito? Ito.
Lahat po
Ito
siya
lang pero,
nilalabhan.
lahat ba? Pati
Lahat
ito?
po siya nilalabhan. Pero,
kung hindi naman nadumihan.
hygiene, hygiene po kasi.
Kailangan pa.
Actually po, pag naka-cloth diapers na tayo, hindi na natin kailangan isipin na magtitipid pa tayo dun sa paggamit kay baby. Kasi washable siya. Kasi yun yung mentality natin pag naka-disposable, di ba? Sayang. Oo. Sa cloth diapers po kasi lalabahan lang natin siya. Actually,
Ang ganda nitong loob.
Opo, kung paano po nag-work yung disposable, ganun din yung cloth diaper. For example, ang disposable, kaya niya ng 4 hours. Ang cloth diapers, kaya niya din po ng 6 hours.
Mas higit pa.
Yes po.
Oo. And then because it's natural, hindi siya plastic, mas komportable si
Yes
baby,
po,
no?
kasi para lang siyang cloth. Breathable po siya. So, nagpa-pass through lang yung air. Hindi siya plastic, hindi siya nakukulob. Di ba pag naka-plastic po, kulob, mainit sa puwet ng baby.
Tapos ang daming designs na pwedeng pagpilian.
Yes, oo. And it's also suitable for sensitive skin.
Yes.
Important yan. Ano?
Yes po, kasi bamboo organic cotton po, yung inner lining namin na magta-touch sa skin ng baby.
Iba yung tela dito sa sa likod.
Yes po, pang stay dry naman po siya para hindi basa yung pakiramdam ni
Parang
baby.
medyo water, ano ba itong tawag doon?
Water repellent.
Water repellent.
Pero ina-absorb ng fabric sa loob, yung liquid.
Ang galing naman.
Stay dry po yung ibabaw niya.
How long did you, siguro after several years, nag-adjust ka rin, but how long did it take to develop
I
this?
think siguro more than 2 years din po. Kasi every time na magre-release kami ng products, po yan, may mga parents kaming pinapatry.
May feedback.
Opo. Then from them, doon namin siya dine-develop. Siyempre po, kasi users ang kailangan na natin sinusunod.
Oo nga.
Kasi sila po ang gumagamit. Tapos pag okay naman po, ina-apply namin sa product. And then, ayan na po siya.
Ito ng
Yes
final.
po. Yan na-
Happy na ang mga
Yes
magulang
po.
dito and babies
Yes
too.
po. Kasi yan po yung hawak nyo, yung nighttime diaper namin siya. So, from, kunyari, 8 p.m.
Pa-practice na si Pawi,
Kunyari po, 8 p.m. niya siya sinuot kay baby, mga 5 hours kaya po yan. Kung pwede nga po, more pa Kaya
Pwedeng
lang,
sa umaga na lang.
Kailangan natin palitan kasi.
Grabe, no? Nagtipid naman tong nanay hanggang umaga.
Pero you know what's really nice about this? Because it's a good alternative, di ba? Pero curious din ako, Lani, marami na bang families ang nag-adopt na rin ng ganitong reusable diapers or may mga
resistant?
Oo.
Hindi po mawawala na may mag-hesitate. Pero, kasi, dun kami pumapasok to educate them, to spread awareness sa mga bagong parents, kung paano nag-work yung cloth diapers. Actually, EcoBARMM is more than 11 years na. So, marami na po kami parents na kahit paano natulungan sa mga sensitive skin ng baby nila, pag may mga UTI yung baby nila. And more pa na mga nakatipid pa po sila.
Ano ang hesitation? Katamaran siguro, parang hirap maglaba. No?
Number 1 po, actually, before pandemic, yung generation natin, masisipag. Actually, may mga lawyers kami, may mga accountants kami, di ba sila yung mga busy talaga. Pero nabibigyan nila ng time, yung cloth
Because
diaper.
they care for the environment.
Yes.
I think that's also...
Tsaka yung health po ng baby nila. Then, after pandemic, nagtandaka kami, bakit ganun? Bakit ayaw na nilang maglaba?
Bakit kaya?
Siguro po kasi syempre nagko-cope up tayo sa economy natin. Mas gusto muna nilang mag-work ng mag-work. Pero kami, pinapasok pa rin namin sila pa konti-konti na maipasok sa system nila.
You mean, I guess kasi nahirapan economically ang mga pamilya nung pandemic.
Yes po. So, mas gusto muna nila siguro mag-earn kaysa yung time nila, ilagay nila sa paglalaba.
Bakit? Hindi ba pwede ito sa washing machine?
Machine washable po siya. Kaya lang, syempre po, hindi naman natin mapipilit ang lahat. So, paulit-ulit kaming nabibigay ng education, especially doon sa mga unaware pa talaga at mas kailangan.
O sige, Lani, pwede mo nang ibaba si baby.
Alam po, ito diaper ko muna.
Sige. Ano mo naman, ano ba to? Ano namang product ito?
Ayan naman po ay changing pad. Actually, marami po siyang gamit. Kasi ano po yan waterproof.
Okay.
So, sige na, higa ka muna dyan.
Sige.
Teka
At
lang,
saka,
baliktad na siya.
ikwento mo, I know you've turned adversity into something good because your business is as old as your child who sadly passed away, no? Did that have anything to do with your wanting to do the business?
Yes po, siya po talaga. Kasi siya din po yung reason kung bakit kami nandito sa business na to. Nung pinanganak ko po kasi siya, sensitive skin, sobra. As in, I have to import organic disposable diaper from Korea to Philippines. Kasi ang bilis na pong magkaroon ng eczema. So, dun...
That's how the idea,
Apo. Actually, available naman na siya sa market noon. Pero usually, nasa ibang bansa po siya, sa US, UK, sila po talaga yung nagsimula.
Tama.
Then, nung nasa Pilipinas na po, medyo hindi kasya sa baby ko kasi on the bigger side yung baby ko.
Talaga?
Kaya po yun, nag-practice ako sa damit ni husband. Yun po yung
Recycle mo.
Opo, yun po yung ginawa kong pattern. Yung mga old clothes niya. Tapos mga old towels, yun yung ginagawa kong parang insert po para din mag-absorb yung water. Then, hanggang sa nag-aral ako magtahi. Actually, hindi po ako marunong manahi. Pinag-aralan ko din siya kung paano manahi. So, bumili kami ng portable machine. Then, nag-trial po ako.
They're very well made, I have to say. Ang ganda.
And then,
dekalidad.
Doon na po kami nag-try na. May terno pa po yan. Nung nag-release po kami, together with my baby, may terno pa po siyang damit. So, naging siya, family terno na. Yung diaper na baby.
Ba't di mo na ginagawa?
Medyo,
Hindi na practical, I guess, no?
Kasi,
mas nag-concentrate ka na
sa
dito.
cloth diapers.
So tell us about your plans, Lani, no, in scaling this business. You mentioned 11 years na kayong eco-BARMM. But siguro in this economy na rin, how competitive are you pa rin? Alam naman natin, actually, mas okay for people ngayon na nagtitipid, di ba?
Mahal ang disposable diaper, ha? Di ba?
Yes po.
How much will you save?
Ang cheapest cloth diapers po namin, pag madalas po nagsisale kasi kami, may mga non-profit bundles kami, like for example, 999 pesos, 3 pieces, premium diapers, lahat yun. For them to try lang nung diapers. As in, wala kaming profit doon.
Really?
Yes. Para lang
At
po
cost lang
matry,
yun, oo.
yes. Para lang po matry ng parents kung mag-work ba sa kanila.
Magkano yung disposable diaper na
Set na talaga.
Siguro po mga 400,
Oo,
500 for a week lang yun. This one, magagamit po nila for years.
Yeah. Sorry, na-interrupt ko yung tanong ni Pawi. Anong plano mo nga daw?
Actually, ngayon po, pakonti-konti. Kasi, syempre, ang mas focus pa rin po kami sa quality. Sa quality pa rin kami nagpo-focus. Di bali siyang mabagal. Basta, consistent po kami dun sa nilalabas naming produkto.
Do you find, Lani, na mas conscious na ngayon compared to 10 years ago ang mga tao about the harm to the environment na ginagawa natin, yung mga single-use plastic usage, etc.?
I think yes po, ma'am. Kasi 'di ba simula nung sunod-sunod tayo ng bagyo, ng baha. Nakita naman nila yung yung naging cause sa atin.
Binabalik yung basura sa
binabalik
atin.
sa atin yung basura. So now, sa community po namin, nakikita po namin na nagbabago talaga. Like for example, may mga mommies na gumagamit ng menstrual disc in replacement of menstrual pads. Though may product din po kaming ganun.
Talaga?
Yes
May
po.
ganun pala.
May
What
menstrual
about?
pads. Ay, hindi po namin.
Meron na rin akong
What
kilalang
about-
nangangailangan yan.
Is she in this room? No. No, but for babies, pwede rin ba? Because parang nauuso din ang reusable diapers for pets.
Yes,
Diba?
yes po.
Oo nga.
Ako,
Yes po, washable
Oo.
din.
laging gumagamit
Yes
ng
po,
diapers.
pwede rin po.
Gumawa ka ng gano'n, yung mga
Actually po,
makakute
yung mga
na.
pets ko nakaganon.
Ayan! You'll be surprised how people can love their pets more. And ren, isang trend na rin yan ngayon, na ang mga tao ay hindi na nagkakaanak, mas gusto na nilang
Sa
mga-
pets
sa
na
pets,
lang.
oo. Oh, looking forward.
Nagda-diaper na rin sila eh.
Yes po, pwede naman po.
Okay, so where can our viewers find
Yeah.
EcoBARMM?
Meron po kami sa Shopee, Lazada, and Facebook pages po.
I wanted to ask pala one final question before we let you go. How can other mothers earn from this? May reselling program ba?
Yes po, may distributorship po kami na nakalas ng 30% for each products na i-avail nila for them to resell.
Oh, pero may kailangan volume.
Yes po. Kasi, for example, yung mga nagre-resell po sa amin, nasa Mindanao pa, pagka medyo magastos po yung transportation pagpa from us to them. So, around 50,000 po. Lahat yun products po na magagamit nila na hini-help din po namin sila kung paano nila mabebenta.
Okay, great. Thank you so much and congratulations again
Thank
to
you
you,
po.
Lani. That was Lani Geronimo, founder of EcoBARMM.
All right, and that's all the time we have tonight on The Big Story this Thursday, but we'll see you again tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a good night.